2. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have a question for you. Are you going through life without an armchair booking t-shirt? If you are, well, you are truly missing out on the
Yeah.
t-shirts. Yeah, I mean, Dwaylen, you have a t-shirt. Am I
Yep.
wrong to say it's made your life better, hasn't it?
Absolutely has.
Yeah, and I can tell you that I have a mask. I have this one. It's made my life it's so complete just having this mask. But as you can see, that's not the only design. I have my phone case, which is this one. You can actually see it right here. And I also have my mug, but not this mug. The one that I have is the travel mug,
Mhm.
and I absolutely enjoy it.
How
But
long?
if
Didn't you say it keeps your coffee
oh my
warm?
lord, yes. And I don't get me wrong, I mean, I'd rather have my coffee start out hot.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, I actually have to pop the little hole open for a little bit because so I don't but yeah, it works really, really well. So it's very well insulated, which is a plus. I mean, I'd rather have it that than my coffee go like stupid cold,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
right away. And as you can look on there, you can tell some of the items, this one right here, you could save 20% if you order within the next 6 hours.
That's right.
That's another good bonus. So if you don't have one, go ahead and go order one. But otherwise, welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Steve Barber, and joining me is my wonderful co-host, Dwaylen Davis.
Hey, everybody. Doing all right?
I'm doing, it's been a hectic week. I mean, it's starting again like it was back in the fall. Not as bad as what it was in the fall, but we're work is ramping up. But I mean, um, can't complain too much. It just means I'm
Yeah.
going to be busy,
Yeah.
and so um, but otherwise, I mean, it's been a very interesting week. Got to watch some wrestling at the beginning of the week, and um, we got to interview Ella, the brand new NWF Women's Champion. We thought that
That's
went
right.
great. Heard a lot of good feedback about it,
Cool. Yeah, that was a
and
really good interview.
it was. I mean, it really was, and she is such a nice person. Even though she said she loves playing heel better,
Hmm.
it's kind of hard to see that
Yeah.
because
Yeah. She's really sweet. Yeah. It's hard to see the heel when we were interviewing her because she's so nice.
yeah, and I think that's the first time I never thought about how much makeup she has to put on, when she's actually, playing Ella and
Hmm.
not the actual person. 'Cause I don't know if she was keen on like giving like her actual. You can find her real name pretty easily, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but if somebody doesn't want to put out there, I'm not going to put it out there. But so when I saw her, I was like, "Who the heck are you?" You know? But yeah, that was absolutely fantastic, and we've got to get her boyfriend. She kept
Mhm.
just calling him Prodigy.
Yeah.
Kobe Kane. We need to get him on
Yeah.
him on the show as well. We do have some other interviews that are going to be coming up. Until we actually do the interview, I'd rather not say who they are.
Yeah. We
Um,
don't want to jinx anything.
no, I don't want to jinx it, but I will say Saturday we have one scheduled that is going to be a really, really big
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
and
Gonna be a
I
big deal for us. Yes.
yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm about as nervous as a cat crapping razor blades. I mean, it's, uh, so definitely wanna, do that one justice, I should say.
Yeah.
Uh, and plus, we have, most of the panel show for Black History Month. We have most of it set in stone. We have
Hmm.
a tentative date. We just gotta, we're just waiting on 2 people to confirm.
Yeah.
They confirm they can be on the show. They just need to confirm the date. That's all we're waiting
Right.
on. But I'm really looking forward to that one. Once again, I'm also nervous that I don't screw it up,
You'll
because
be fine.
but I mean, I'll be like the one like, hi, I'll just sit here and be quiet. I'll host everything. But but of course, I mean, obviously, if somebody asks me a question, I'm gonna
Right.
answer it, and we'll both have questions as well. So I mean, we're
Yep.
both wrestling historians, and I think this is a topic that is long overdue to be discussed.
Yes.
You
Very
know,
long overdue.
Yep. Because there's a lot of things. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't aware we're still going on. Um, we shouldn't be in the age of still saying, well, they're the first. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Just now?
Yep.
We're in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
How are we just now saying the first?
Yeah.
but things, hopefully we will hit a day one day where we won't have to say the first.
No.
We want to,
Yep.
of anything. We'll just say, hey, they won. They put on a fantastic match. They're awesome.
Yep.
Because I don't like putting qualifiers.
Right.
So but anyway, so tonight we're going to be discussing some, it's been kind of a quiet week as far as wrestling concerned.
It really has. Not a whole lot has been going on. There's been a few things. We've had some new additions to the AEW roster, and there's been some things about WrestleMania that have come out. So I mean, there's been some things, but it hasn't just been a like mind-blowing news week in wrestling.
I mean, now the event last night, I'd say it was a pretty big event, and
yeah,
I'm not just saying that because he's a big man.
Yeah.
But I missed it, so you'll have to describe what it was like when Keith Lee walked out, because
Lord,
Keith Lee is now all elite.
All elite. It's official. The picture they always post when somebody signs, Tony Khan put it on Twitter. I don't understand. We were just talking about this before we went on air. I don't understand how WWE messed this up. Keith Lee has been a star everywhere he has gone since him and Shane Taylor started as the Pretty Boy Killers in Ring of Honor. When they started as a tag team, you could see it. Keith Lee was a star then. He's a former Pro Wrestling Guerrilla World Champion, the only wrestler in NXT history to be the NXT champion and the NXT North American champion at the same time.
He was. That's right.
The man screams star. He has charisma, mic skills, the fans in the palm of his hand. He is a 348-pound super heavyweight who moves like Rey Mysterio. I don't understand. And Pete, seriously, there's a clip of the full thing, like his entrance, his match, everything on AEW's YouTube page. You should check that out, because his music hit. It said Limitless on the Tron. Those fans lost their mind. They knew exactly who it was. And when he walked out, that place just erupted. The announcers were amazed. The fans were amazed. He's in the ring. He's doing the conductor thing because the fans are saying, "Oh, bask in his glory." Everything screams star. I mean, in two minutes it took him to get to the ring and the bell to ring. Everybody knew, look at this star. This is a superstar. This is a future world champion in our company. And I don't understand how. Triple H didn't mess it up. Triple H knew what he had. But when they brought Keith Lee to the main roster, it's like they act like they didn't know what to do with him. Just get out of his way and let him be Keith Lee. And you can tell that's what AEW is doing. And when he was wrestling Isaiah Cassidy, who's one half of the Private Party tag team, Isaiah Cassidy got in his face. Keith Lee pushed him all the way to the far corner and then just beeled him from one corner to the other. Just launched him like a child. He just threw him. It's just that if I know a lot of times wrestlers come into a company and people are like, "Oh, that's a future world champion right there." I know it gets overused a lot, but unless somehow Tony Khan screws it up, and I don't think he will, Keith Lee is a future AEW world champion. It's going to be some time, Keith Lee, because Keith Lee even said on Twitter, he said there's still a lot of work to be done, but Keith Lee is a future AEW world champion.
It kind of makes you wonder who in WWE, there's somebody, it's almost like the Clique is back.
Yeah, it's like Oh, well, he's over. We got to shut that down real quick because
Yeah,
he's getting too much shine, so we can't have that happening. And it's like, I mean, they did it with him, they did it with Karrion Kross. It's like pretty much anybody that came from NXT. I mean, there's Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens are really about the only Drew McIntyre to an extent, but Drew McIntyre to me wasn't there long enough to really be considered an NXT guy. That was just a stop for
right.
him when he was coming back into company. But like Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens are really the only guys that have done extremely well on the main roster coming from NXT in spite of Vince McMahon and the writers and all that. Most of the time coming from NXT to the main roster is a nail in the coffin because they ruin everything that made you great in NXT. They've already done it with Damian Priest.
Yeah,
Everything that made Damian Priest interesting and popular and everything, they've completely ruined that. Bringing his current run, it's like as soon as he won the United States title, it's like, oh, we got to strip away everything that made him what he is, and do this split personality thing. And it's like, just let the guy be who he was in NXT or Ring of Honor for that matter, because that's where they first saw him anyway.
and I don't remember which podcast I was listening to today, but they were actually talking about Shane, getting released, fired. On Flair's podcast, Mark Madden said he thinks it might be a work. I'm like, you know,
I mean,
that's a
you,
little extreme, but
you never can tell, but from what, like I said, from what I've understand from multiple sources, it was Vince who made the call.
right.
Vince kicked him to the curb. So
Actually, you know what? It was Flair's podcast. It was the same one where um, they said, well, Shane was fired because of his booking. And then someone said, well, everything runs through Vince. Vince had to approve it. And I think they're forgetting something. Vince might not have been as involved with the Rumble because his mom passed away the day before.
no, but here's the thing. Shane was trying to book the entire Rumble around him. That Shane even floated the idea of him going coast to coast and coming out at number one and going all the way to the end. And they said Vince McMahon himself said no to that. There were several ideas that Shane McMahon had that Vince McMahon said no because Vince already knew he was going to have Brock win the Rumble. So Brock had some ideas, Vince had ideas. Shane, who was in charge of booking the event, figured, oh, well, I'm booking it, so I'm just going to get my ideas in there and make this about me. And Vince was like, no, it was like when Vince Russo was there. Vince was the filter. And that's how it was. That's from what I understand, that's how it was at the Rumble. Shane had all these crazy ideas, and Vince is like, no. So then Shane is mad about that. So then he's disrespectful to producers and the writing staff and things like that because everybody wasn't just going, oh my God, Shane, that's a fantastic idea. You're 52 years old, but we're going to book you like you're Superman. That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
And I watch What Culture News every morning during the week. I've seen on Pro Wrestling, PW Insider, WrestleZone, Shane McMahon thinks that he is the hardest man in pro wrestling. It's like he's done some MMA training and has been booked like Evil Knievel his entire career.
Yeah.
And he thinks that makes him the absolute toughest man in the sport. And it's like, Shane, you're a 52-year-old billionaire's son. Sit down before you get hurt.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I have been impressed when he's done this. I mean, he's fearless when it comes to jumping off of stuff.
But I mean, it's like, look at Jeff Hardy. You can only jump off stuff for so long before your body pays for it.
Yeah. And it may have been What Culture, or maybe there's been so many podcasts and everything else that I've been listening to or watching,
Mhm.
or that we've actually been a part of,
Yeah.
because we get on other podcasts. And I want to say more than one of them pointed out Shane would go to, like, say like
Mhm.
WrestleMania in Dallas against the Undertaker, and Hell in a Cell for no
Yep.
reason whatsoever.
Yeah, there was no need for the sale.
No need
The
for it.
the only reason they booked the sale because they knew Shane would jump off of it.
Yeah, and he did.
Yeah.
And I woke my wife up because I screamed, "Holy something!" and and by that point, it was like almost midnight because that was one of the WrestleManias that lasted forever.
Yes, that's the one that was
Ugh.
like, I mean, I think that show was like with the pre-show and everything, it was like a 7-hour show.
Oh yeah,
And it's like, I'm so
and that
glad
was
that
for
they're
us.
yeah,
Think about the people who were there.
yeah. I'm so glad that they're doing the 2-night WrestleManias now.
Right.
And I'm also glad that they've started being sensible and doing some pay-per-views on Saturdays.
Hmm. And the whichever one it may have been, like I said, may have been What Culture, it may have been WrestleMania, may have been Cultaholic, it may have been any other. They pointed out Shane does that stuff, and then he takes months off because he's not a full time wrestler.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's to me, that's another spit in the face to people that are there
Hmm.
all year long. Yeah, Shane can do these crazy stunts because then he gets a couple of months off to rest up and heal up.
Yeah.
You've got other guys that are beating their body up night in and night out. They don't get a month or two off to rest. Not unless you're in a position like Randy Orton has put in 20 years and
Yeah.
guys like that. But like your regular, say your regular top of the mid card guy, he's working every night. He's not
Hmm.
getting that time off. The women aren't getting that time off to rest. So it's like I lump Shane in with these other part timers that come in, get all their stuff in, get their little highlight reel, and then take off for a couple of months. And it's like you can't. That's just it's just disrespectful to the men and women who work their tails off all year long.
Think about the most famous jumping off of or being thrown off of in the history of wrestling, and that's probably Foley being thrown
It
off
was
Hell in a
Foley
Cell.
off the cell
Yeah,
twice.
twice.
Once off of it, once through
Once
it.
through it.
And the one that went through it was not supposed to happen. It was
Right.
just 200-300
Boom,
pounders.
boom.
That's the top of that cell couldn't hold it. Foley was on Raw wrestling the next night.
Foley, think about this.
I'm not saying he should have been,
No,
but he was on there.
but think about this. Foley went off the top of the cage through the announce table, through the Spanish
Yep.
announce table. Those poor guys. They say, "Hey, we want you to be at the Spanish announce table." No, no, no hablo. No, I'm not doing it because I don't want somebody 320 pounds hitting me, from a height of legitimately what 20
And I
foot
mean,
up.
he barely hit the table.
Yeah.
I mean, he hit most of his body hit concrete. He got off the stretcher, went back up, got choke slammed through the top of the set,
which wasn't supposed to happen. So he couldn't even brace himself for that one.
As he's coming down, so is the chair that was on top of the cell.
Hit him in the face.
Hits him in the face, breaks off a tooth and a half. Foley's on autopilot, but he is still fighting.
Yeah, and because think about this, they took him. Okay, after the first one, they took him on the stretcher out. He climbs off the stretcher. It goes back, with a separated shoulder, mind you.
Yeah,
climbs up the cage
to
the top, and this was actually the reason why, if you look at the Hell in a Cell now, they have the footholds.
Yeah,
because he didn't have that, and of course neither did Taker.
Yep.
Taker also had like a broken foot, legitimately.
He had a legitimate broken foot.
Yeah, so I mean,
and prior to the match, I mean, it was broken before that. So Taker's gone in injured. Foley has been destroyed, and is still competing.
Yeah, he came in there, got it back, went through it, wasn't supposed to, but he went through it, boom. And I remember that one because as soon as he hit, they knew, oh, this is not good. And you saw the cage miss fly up. And
well, that's why Terry Funk got in there and was like kind of like got in the Undertaker's face. They were stalling.
Yeah.
to
because
see if Foley was
um,
going to come to or not.
what I cannot remember the guy's name because Foley talks about him in his book. The guy, he had the ponytail, but he's actually a doctor.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, he
I know
was.
who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name. But yeah, he's actually
It's a very French sounding name.
yeah.
That's what that's why I cannot remember the actual name. But yeah, I mean, that cage all of a sudden went up. I mean, he slid. He didn't even wait for the cage. I mean, he was under it up there
Uh-huh.
checking on him
Yeah.
to make sure because they thought. I mean, they legitimately thought they had just killed him.
They thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And there has never been a better call by an announcer in pro wrestling when Jim Ross was like, "Stop the damn match, y'all have killed him."
Yeah. And I think that's what Lars like. He's dead.
Yeah, it's like that's
And
it. He's
that's
dead.
it. And then he comes back off. They put him back on the stretcher, taking him off. All of a sudden they look up and here he comes again.
Yep. I
And
mean,
he's back in
brawled.
there.
He still brawled with the Undertaker. He took the choke slam on the thumbtacks. He took a
Yeah.
tombstone, but he was still giving
Yeah.
offense to the Undertaker. And it's like you have that, and then you look at nowadays where it's like I did one spot, so now I need 3 months off so I can rest.
Yeah. And you know, and one of the things, and it's not funny, and there's no something else that Foley actually mentions in his book when the Undertaker, bam, Foley just kind of, he just kind of melted.
Yeah, he just crumpled. He's like, it's like I know it looked ridiculous, but it really didn't. In
It
the
looked more
context of the
legitimate,
match,
actually.
it looked like he just legitimately
Yeah,
got
like,
knocked out.
oh.
Yeah.
And he was hurt so bad during that Taker and him were talking backstage, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot to do the thumbtacks. Mick, look at your arm," and his arm is just covered
Mhm.
in the thumbtacks.
I read in his book that he says that like even now, like recent interviews to this day, he doesn't remember the match after going off the cell.
Right.
He remembers what people have told him. He's gone back and watched it, but he's like, as far as my memory goes, I remember being in the air after getting thrown off the cell. I don't remember anything else.
And think about this: he walked out because they were about to put him
Yes.
back on the stretcher, and
Mhm.
he said, "Was I on a stretcher already?" And yeah, I don't want to be on a stretcher again. Let me.
Yeah.
And Terry
he
Funk, of course, was
Yeah.
helping him down, and he's like pointing at him, going, "Yeah, they're like Foley, Foley."
Well, it's just like you look at the toughness of Mick Foley and go back to WCW, his feud with Vader. He's
Yes.
taking unprotected shots.
Mhm.
And it was Foley's idea to take the shots because the whole plan, because Foley is one of the most generous professional wrestlers I've ever seen.
Mhm.
If he thinks that he can get someone to that next level, he is willing to put his body on the line to do it. In order to make Vader the monster that Foley knew he was from watching him in Japan, but to get the audience to understand that, Foley was willing to take unprotected, straight closed fists from Big Van Vader.
And the power bomb
They
on
were
concrete.
and they were nasty. Oh Lord. I remember seeing that when it first happened, and I was like, that's not supposed to be happening. Yeah, and then the power bomb on the floor, and
then he got an ear ripped off. Now that wasn't supposed to happen, but he got an ear ripped off.
Yeah. But it's like you got guys now. You got guys. I mean, and I know I keep bringing up Goldberg, but Goldberg has done nothing, absolutely nothing since the Saudi Arabia show where he beat Bobby Lashley. Storyline wise, I can kind of understand why they had him beat Bobby Lashley. But for me, it is ridiculous for 56-year-old Bill Goldberg to be beating Bobby Lashley. I understand Bobby Lashley is in his early 40s. Bobby Lashley is an amazing human specimen. And he is not just for show. Bobby Lashley can still go. That's the problem with Goldberg. Goldberg looks for 55, 56 years old.
Yep.
He's in phenomenal shape until the bell rings and then he's gassed.
Yep.
He is blown up the first 2 minutes of the match. Everybody has to work a Bill Goldberg match because Bill Goldberg can't work everybody else's match.
Right.
So
And
now, so now they've done nothing with him since Saudi last year at Crown Jewel, and all of a sudden Roman Reigns is next, and Bill Goldberg just saunters in and announces that, oh, I'm the number one contender for the Universal title.
and they go, okay.
Yeah, they're just like, okay, because we need that name recognition because we're going back over to Saudi and we need that name recognition. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to be building new stars. Go look at your competition and see how many stars you let walk through the door over there.
Hmm. And one last thing about Foley and about the night before we move on, you're talking about, yeah, he was on Raw the next night. You forgot that very same night he came out and
That's
interfered in a
right.
match.
That's right. He came
Yeah,
out during the main event and interfered in the first blood match between Austin and Kane.
which I never
That's right.
understood why Kane was in a first blood match with a mask on, um, but yeah, so Shane McMahon does a couple matches, jumps off of a high building, and then
Mhm.
he's off for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
They heal up.
Yeah.
Mick Foley was literally back out there 30 minutes later after what he had just done.
Yep.
So yeah, Shane, you jumping off is impressive. I couldn't do it. Mick Foley did it twice within a span of 10 minutes
Yeah.
and took a tombstone and took a choke slam on
Yep.
Tax.
And
And
took a chair shot to the face in the main event.
yeah, and he did all that, and then 30 minutes later he was back out there taking
Mhm.
and he was on Raw the next night.
Yep.
So Shane, for you to get fired, dude,
Yeah.
you're not what did he win? The greatest athlete or the
The
world's
best in the world. He won that World Cup, and it was, I mean, one, you can't have a World Cup when you're an isolated company.
right.
Two, it was just a farce because like all these guys wrestled this tournament, and then Shane wanders in at the end because somebody supposedly got hurt.
Oh, who was it that got hurt? Was
Was
it
it
Dolph
was
or
it Dolph or was it the Miz?
I think it may have been. You know what? I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, but one of them was kayfabe injured, and so Dolph just, Shane just sauntered in, put himself in the match, wins the match, and proclaims he is the best wrestler in the world.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, that's how WWE. That's how they like to book things. Just
Yeah.
throw somebody in there, right? Because of certain Money in the Bank a few years ago. All of a sudden, a mystery guy comes
Hmm.
out, and it's like he hasn't
Yep.
been. He goes in there, wrestles for a minute. Oh, he's the greatest wrestler ever.
Yeah.
Royal Rumble comes in
Uh-huh.
there, the last person.
2 minutes, 2.5 minutes later,
At
and it's like,
he's going to,
yay.
and he's going to get people who are already gassed up, and
Yep.
and Shane McMahon,
Hmm.
who should be there anyway. Bad Bunny, who I mean, I admit I'm actually impressed by Bad Bunny. He has a lot of respect for the business, and he works at it.
Yep.
Not sure about how I feel about him taking the spot of an actual wrestler, but I
But
would.
given WWE's climate, I mean, they let go of 2/3 of their roster,
That's
so
true.
they needed to fill some spaces.
And speaking of those releases, because we were talking about this the other day, it's like, okay, they have a lot of people who are coming up in their 90 days because we mentioned Keith Lee, we mentioned Ember Moon.
Hmm.
Um, I want to see her wrestling somewhere because she is too good of a talent to not be wrestling.
There's been rumors going around that she was in talks to sign with Impact Wrestling, so
Okay.
maybe
But
she'll go there.
yeah, but just think about these names. These are all the names that were released that very same day. Frankie Monet, Ember Moon, Scarlett, One Lorcan, Karrion Cross, B-Fab. Yeah, that's right. That was the day B-Fab. They had just moved to the main roster, and 2 weeks later, they're released.
Well, they had just signed her to a new contract, a new
Yes.
long-term deal, like a week before they released her.
And I was looking forward to seeing that faction because I'm like, okay,
They were good.
yeah. Jessica Mia, Zeta Ramier, Trey Baxter, Katrina Cortez, Jeet Rama, Gren Metalik, Lince Dorado, Keith Lee, Nia Jax, Mia Yim, which Keith Lee and Mia Yim, they kind of make sense.
Yeah, they got
Yeah,
married over the weekend, by the way.
yeah, I was gonna say
Congratulations.
congratulations. And Harry Smith, that one that kind of surprises me, son of the British Bulldog,
Hmm.
and Eva Marie. So there's a lot of people right there who could be signing
Yeah.
somewhere. And um, it's just a shame. I mean, that's why we all of a sudden for the Rumble, they went, oh crap, we don't have enough people for the Rumble.
Hmm. Yep.
And especially on the women's side of the house. And I don't want to look at the roster that was in the Rumble, but I want to say it was probably about a third of them were legends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were in there, all right, except for Lita. Lita can stay in here for a while. The rest of y'all come in. All right, now get out.
Yeah. They just came out for a pop and then they were gone. And it's like people want to talk about how the casual wrestling fan doesn't know certain wrestlers. If you look at the difference between a WWE show when they bring out like wrestlers from the past and an AEW show when they bring out wrestlers from the past, there's a lot more knowledgeable fans of wrestling that are watching the AEW product because they have had the Rock and Roll Express on there. Tully
Mhm.
Blanchard is a manager. Arn Anderson is a manager. Uh, Jake the Snake Roberts is a manager. And when these people come out, these are legitimate legends of the business. And when these people come out, fans know who they are. The
Mhm.
AEW fans know who they are. So people can quit using that excuse to where it's like, oh, we got to cater to the casual fan. No, you don't. I mean, if the casual fan wants to watch pro wrestling, that's fine. But you need to cater to the fans that are there, that have supported your companies, have supported this industry for years and years and years, not the, oh, well, I like this person, so I'm going to watch it from January to April, and then I'm not going to watch it the rest of the year.
Right.
That's the casual fan, and that's the type of fan that's not going to sustain your business.
It's kind of like people they don't watch football at all until it's Super Bowl time.
Right. Or
Because I
don't
mean,
even, and
yeah,
I get, like, I don't watch every single game. I don't have cable anymore. I got rid of it. We just do strictly streaming. I do have some, but I do have some streaming apps to where I can catch a few games, but I keep up with it.
right.
I keep up with professional football. Professional football is now my favorite sport. I keep up with it constantly. Every week, I'm keeping up with the scores and the stats and everything. But it's like you said, you have these football fans that don't even keep up with it, and it's like, oh, it's Super Bowl, I got to watch, and it's
Right.
like, why are you watching? Are you supporting either one of these teams? Are you interested in what's going on? Or you're just looking for a reason to party and watch the halftime show?
Right when you just said that's my favorite sport, it
Yeah.
was like the cadence you said that I automatically thought of Curtis Blow. Not football, but
Yeah.
you know, and I almost started singing basketball is my favorite sport. And for those of y'all who don't know that, go look. We're talking like old school.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because
Definitely need to Google that.
yeah, because if they probably go Curtis who?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, Curtis, never mind. So
But another wrestler that debuted for AEW last night was Jay White.
yes.
And which is Jay White is phenomenal, especially since he's been doing the switchblade stuff and he's really coming to his own as like the leader of the Bullet Club. And that was having Keith Lee and Jay White both debut on the same night were huge. Those were huge gets for
Hmm.
AEW. And I've also seen this on Twitter earlier today. People are like, see, they keep hiring these big name people, but they're not keeping people who were there in the beginning. That was never going to happen. Everyone that was there at the beginning of AEW was not going to be there long term. A lot of these people were there, they had a roster to build. But you've got people whose contracts are expiring. It's
Hmm.
completely different than, say, BFAB, who signed a long term contract. A week later, she gets released. That's not paying out the contract. They paid her for 90 days after her release, and then the rest of that money was left on the table.
Yep.
The people in AEW whose contracts are expiring, that to me, that is smart business. If you're going to try to keep getting better and keep getting bigger, you've got to bring in those big names. So these contracts that are expiring, Tony Khan has held up his obligation. He has paid them all the way through to the end of their contract. So I don't see anything wrong with letting some contracts expire, bringing in some bigger names to keep eyes on your product.
Exactly. And AEW is what, 3 years old now?
Yes, they started in 2019.
So the people, they were on 3-year contracts, which
Yeah.
is a normal contract.
Yep. I mean, you
Um,
look at professional sports, a lot of them are on, 3 or 4 year deals, and then the contract gets renegotiated. They don't always get re-signed.
Right. And they don't want to do much more than 3 years, maybe 4, because you start getting into, well, these are professional athletes.
Yeah.
And this includes wrestlers. They are also professional athletes. I don't care
Yep.
what you say. I mean, they're doing some very, very athletic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they are 2 years into like a 5-year contract. If they get hurt on the job, guess what? Now the
Yep.
company has to pay them,
Yep.
because they got hurt on the job.
Yep.
And they may actually even have something in their contract, like if they get hurt in like a car wreck, that's not their
Mm-hmm.
fault. Something that's not their fault. Guess what?
Right.
They're still going to have to pay them a certain percentage of that contract.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so that's why a 3-year contract, I mean, that is pretty standard.
Yeah.
And so people need to not get mad at Tony Khan because he took care of them. They
Right.
held up their end. He held up his end. There's
Yep.
only one person I think who has kind of had a little bit of the red bud about anything. I can't even remember her name. Um, it was fairly recent, like in the past few months.
Was it Big Swole?
It may have been, yeah. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
the whole thing, but she's the only one who's had any kind of issues
Yeah.
about anything. And I mean, and you look at some of the ones they had at the beginning. They had the dude like who had like, well, he was pretty much just torso with arms. I can't because he had no legs.
Marco Stunt?
No, not Marco Stunt. Not him. Marco Stunt. I mean, he's got talent. Every time I look at him, though, I'm like, somebody lost their kid.
Yeah, there's a
You
kid in the
know?
ring. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was on their very first pay-per-view, their very first event. Period. They started out with a battle royal, and this guy had no legs. And
Oh, it was at all in the
yeah,
buy-in battle royal. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Because
Yeah.
the whole time I'm like, um, is he in a hole or something? That dude has he has no legs. Like, all right, well, you ain't putting a figure 4 on him,
Yeah.
so he's got kind of an advantage. But unfortunately for him, and yeah, he was in the ring. I mean, and he was giving it his all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if they put him in there, then they felt he earned the right to be there because
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things I've kind of noticed about AEW as opposed to WWE. The handful of celebrities who've been involved with AEW have actually more or less earned their way in.
And they've
Uh,
kind of added something to the product, not just, hey, I'm just going to show up,
right.
collect a check, and you know, not really do anything. The athletes the celebrities that have been there are legitimate fans.
Mhm.
Like Snoop was on there, legitimate wrestling fan. Shaq's legitimate wrestling fan. People like that are like, I have nothing but respect for them because they respect pro wrestling.
And my son, speaking of Shaq, my son has become like a huge Shaq fan. Like in the past, whatever he's like, Shaquille O'Neal, he owns all these Papa Johns. Shaquille O'Neal, he owns this. Shaquille O'Neal, he has a PhD. I'm like, yes, Leighton, I know all this. I
Mhm.
know, and and I'm like, and Shaquille O'Neal is one of the funniest people.
He is, and he is a genuinely good human being. I
Yes,
mean, just I can't say enough about the type of person that Shaquille O'Neal is. If more people were like Shaq, the world would be a better place.
yeah, and and when he played in the NBA, um, yeah, he got in some fights, but it wasn't like he was the one starting the fights necessarily.
Right.
I think Charles Barkley bouncing a basketball off his head, that'd make anybody mad.
Yeah. And
You
it's like, why would you want to make a man that size and that strong mad? Why
Well,
would you want? I
well, it was
don't understand.
Barkley. I mean, Barkley was kind of a hothead.
No, Barkley.
Uh,
Yeah, Barkley was a hothead, but Barkley knew when to back off though
he
too.
did.
So,
Um, and I mean, I could not stand Barkley for the longest time just because it was really his attitude.
mhm.
Ever since he retired from basketball, though, you hear him in interviews.
Oh
That
yeah,
that dude's hilarious.
yeah.
I mean, but anyway, but Barkley's not gotten involved with the wrestling as far as I know. But
I
yeah, but
think
Shaq has, and you know,
yeah.
and and Shaq, this is actually not his first time getting involved with wrestling because when
Nope.
Hogan first went to WCW,
Yep.
here comes Shaq, and this is when Shaq was still with the Magic.
Yeah.
So yeah, because Hogan went to WCW in '94. Shaq started with the Magic in the fall of '92.
Mhm.
Um, because me and uh, somebody we talked about not too long ago,
Mhm.
and another guy who graduated like 2 years before us, we went down to Daytona for spring break. I wasn't in college, but I went to spring break anyway. But we went to we were supposed to be there for a week, and if my mom's listening, yeah, you're going to hear some of this for the first time. We were supposed to be down there for a week. Went down to Daytona for one night. Oh
Mhm.
my God, that was expensive. And we felt really poor because we're the one guy who was graduate tours for us. His name was Ken. Well,
Mhm.
Ken had a nice Mustang,
Yeah.
but it was nothing compared to some of the other cars we were parking beside, and us with our
So what they
Kentucky.
had.
Oh, they had some nice vehicles, and we're pulling up with our Kentucky tags. They're pulling up with their Vermont, New
Mhm.
Hampshire, all from like the Northeast, and they had, they're dressed real nice, and I'm dressed like, well, um, and that actually kind of ironically enough, the next day we actually went to Orlando. So this is just a coincidence. Or we went to the Hard Rock. For those of y'all who are just listening to audio, I'm actually wearing a Hard Rock Cafe Orlando shirt. And well, the next day we went to Orlando, where we went to the Hard Rock Cafe. I had another shirt back then that I bought. This is a newer one I got like a year ago. And we watched a spring training game between the Mets and the Royals. And then that night we got tickets from a scalper and watched the Magic and the Knicks.
Mhm.
And we actually fell asleep during the game because we were so exhausted. And next day we started heading back to Hopkinsville because we were already out of money.
Right.
But I stayed over at somebody else's house for like the next few days. My mom thinks I was in Florida for a week.
Ah.
Yeah, so that was 30
Well,
years ago.
if she's listening, she knows now.
That was 30, sorry, mom. That was 30 years ago. I guess I got some confession to make. And by the way, since it's kind of also since Dwalen's on here, back in also in 1992, um, Dwaylen needed a ride from University of Louisville. I went and got him in your car. I just figured I'd let you know now. I mean,
Yeah,
that
it's
was
like,
yeah, that was 92. Yeah, that was also
yeah,
in
yeah,
92. So
mhm,
I took the Hoopty, the 75 Nova, and
yep,
that was the infamous 2 hours.
yeah. That was,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
We were going warp speed in that thing.
yeah. We passed the state trooper station on the Western Kentucky Parkway going 120.
Hmm.
It's like, boom. Yeah, never mind.
It's like I'm not. Yeah, it's like I'm not trying to
But
catch them.
yeah, by the time we get, yeah, they'll be on the exit. They're probably going to
Yeah,
Penny Ryle. They're probably going back to Hopkinsville.
probably.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So, sorry, mom. Yeah.
Um, there was something else that I heard on What Culture News this morning that about Drew McIntyre for like WrestleMania plans. He's been in this feud with Happy Corbin and
God.
Madcap Moss and all this. The going plan right now is for Drew McIntyre to wrestle Happy Corbin at WrestleMania. He's going to wrestle Madcap Moss at Elimination Chamber. I don't understand why, because he already beat him at day one. So I don't understand why they're doing that. Adam Wilborn on What Culture did have a good point though. Maybe they're doing this to get him ready down the line for a world title feud, because he did have issues with his neck and things like
Right.
that. Maybe they're giving something a little easier to do while still getting him on the WrestleMania card. And then after that, he'll probably get moved into the main event slot. But it's like, I'll be glad when all this Madcap Moss, Happy Corbin stuff feud with Drew McIntyre is over, because none of it makes any sense. It is not entertaining, and just wrap it up already. Nobody thinks this is funny.
No, and I mean, I think that may be part of why they're doing it, to have these guys tell stupid jokes that nobody thinks is
Mhm.
funny. Their jokes are becoming, I don't know if you want to say racist, but definitely kind of borderline.
Yes. And WWE has a bad habit of scripting their heels to walk that razor's edge of there's being a heel and then there's just being a disgusting human being. And
Yeah.
WWE has a bad habit of having their heels walk that line. And it's like, can it just be as simple as, you're a champion and I want the belt? That's why we're fighting. Or, I don't like you and you don't like me, so let's just fight, work, and get it out and move on. It doesn't have to be all this convoluted stuff. Okay, perfect example. Sorry, perfect example was last night on AEW Rampage. For anybody who hadn't watched it yet, spoiler alert, but the world title was defended. After the match, Adam Cole comes out, picks up the belt, makes his intentions known that he wants a shot at the title, hands it to the champion, and leaves. There's your story.
That's it. There, boom.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Because Adam Cole said on Rampage, I'm tired of getting passed over. I want to be the AEW World Champion. He comes out last night, makes his intention known to the champion, and leaves. That's all you have to do. It's not complicated.
Yeah. And considering on the WWE roster, there is Drew McIntyre, there is Doudrop, there is Nikki Ash, and there's got to be somebody else. But what do those three people have in common?
They're all Scottish.
They're all Scottish.
Yeah.
And they're constantly coming out and insulting, basically his heritage.
Yeah.
Because they're not like, okay, the name Barber is Scottish. So I'm like, really, y'all going to insult somebody who's Scottish? But I was not born in Scotland.
Right.
They were. I mean, they are Scottish through
They were
through.
They were born and raised in Scotland.
Yes. And you asked me about them. Hey, I'm Scottish.
Right.
And, so now they're sitting there insulting, them for being Scottish. And they're making fun of them. I'm like, well, I don't see y'all doing a UK tour anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, that's just like when Jinder Mahal was WWE champion and they had him in the feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, and they had him they had him booked saying all this disgusting stuff about Shinsuke being Japanese. And it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah. I don't get it.
I don't either.
And
and even the leaning into, well, just like with Sheamus, Triple H did not want Sheamus being Irish to be the crux of his character. But Vince McMahon wanted to lean into Sheamus being Irish, so that's why he had all the stuff on his gear and in his entrance and all that. And now they've got him looking like, an Irish pub brawler from, from a UK crime movie or something. And it's like,
Yeah.
just let him go out and wrestle.
Yeah.
You don't have to do all this.
Right. I mean, hey, if he wants to put a shamrock on his tights just to say, hey, look,
Yeah.
I'm Irish. Hey, cool.
Exactly. That's him. Just like with Dewdrop, she put her family's
The tartan.
like, yeah,
Yeah. The tartan.
She put the crest on, the colors of the crest on her gear. That's just paying respect. That's a different thing. But that it's like, we know they're Scottish. You don't have to play it up for laughs or get cheap heat or anything like this. And I just don't understand
Yeah. And that's another thing. You have Sheamus, you have Finn Balor, you have Becky Lynch.
Mhm.
And that's three. I can't. I was sure
there's
that.
also Devin Jordan. He's in NXT UK. He's Irish.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's more, but
here's an idea, Vince. You want to see something backfire? Bring out Commander Aziz.
yeah.
He's half Nigerian, half Polish.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, say something, Vince.
Yeah.
And see what happens to you.
Yeah.
And Cesaro, I mean, Cesaro, he's the only Swiss wrestler that I can name off the top of my head. I'm not saying there's not more, but
yeah.
But they call him the Swiss Superman.
Yeah.
Cool nickname. Now if there was a lot more Swiss people, it wouldn't be as effective, but he's the only one.
Right.
But they're also not insulting him for being Swiss.
Yeah. Yep.
And Benoit, they used to call him the Canadian Crippler.
Yeah.
But that was like, okay. I mean, they weren't trying to insult him.
No, they weren't insulting him. He was Canadian. He got the Crippler name because
he crippled people.
He dumped Sabu on his head. Well, actually, it was Sabu's fault because Sabu didn't rotate correctly,
right,
on the suplex and ended up breaking his neck. But it worked for Benoit's character, so they started calling him the Crippler, and it stuck.
And think about this, you're mentioning Jinder Mahal. Although Jinder Mahal is actually Canadian, but his family, I mean, they immigrated from India.
Yeah.
And Jinder Mahal, who can actually speak 3 different languages, he speaks English, he speaks French, he speaks Hindi, and he speaks them all fluent. And so I get they were trying to tap into the Indian audience because you just didn't. Now you have more Indian wrestlers coming over. But if they were to start saying something about him being from India, but so Vince, knock it off.
Yeah,
because you're making me and Dwaylen mad. You don't want that. So, and I don't even want to go into when he was talking to Cena. First, he said, "What's good in the hood?" I'm like,
yeah,
really?
and then oh my god,
then he said something else that I'm not going to repeat. And Booker T and Sharmell were sitting there like. And Booker T said, "Please tell me he did not say that."
And Booker did not look like it was like scripted anger. Booker T looked extremely angry, and I don't blame him a bit.
Right. Of course, ironically enough with Booker T, because one time he got kind of caught up in the promo. When
one of my favorite promos, by the way. But he knew he'd messed up as soon as he said it. He was like, "Oh."
Because it was live.
What was great though is Stevie Ray just went ahead with his part like it was nothing. So
and then Sherry was trying to hold back from laughing.
Yeah.
One of the most famous now, and Booker T says he is like, "Yeah, I don't say that word anymore."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, I don't blame you, dude." I mean, and it was funny. It was because he was like, did he really just say and he actually kind of laughs about it now because he knows, I mean, he got caught up in the promo.
Yep.
But of course, I mean, that was an unscripted promo, unlike the garbage they're doing now.
Yeah.
So when we ask, talk about Keith Lee, what's WWE thinking? Well, there it is right there. They want to
Yeah.
control everything.
You realize that they have that AEW has 5 former NXT champions on their books?
Keith Lee,
Mm-hmm.
Adam Cole.
Mm-hmm.
You have to name the rest of them.
Andrade,
Yeah.
Malachi Black,
Yep.
and Pac.
Oh, I forgot about Pac.
Yep.
Wow. I like Pac. I mean, I keep forgetting. Um, my God, I forgot his name in WWE.
It started out Adrian Neville, and then
Just
they
Neville after that.
dropped the Adrian, and it was just Neville. They
Because
had a. Did you see the match that? It was actually not Pac. It's Pac.
either way,
Pac and Pentagon had against Malachi Black and Brody King
no,
on
I haven't seen
Impact
that.
on Dynamite last week.
No, I didn't
Excellent.
Oh,
Excellent.
actually, you know what? I think I did. I did catch
Excellent
part of it.
tag team match.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, this past few weeks have all of a sudden just kind of been almost a blur.
Mhm.
It's because so much stuff happening, at work and at home. And yeah, my daughter's coming home this weekend.
Cool.
In fact, she'll be home tomorrow. But let me text her, tell her to bring back my Apple Watch.
Like, can I have my stuff back, please?
Yeah, because when I took her car up to her, my Apple Watch was somehow it came undone and it
Mhm.
fell in her car. And I looked around and I'm sort of thinking, where, I didn't really notice until I was on my way back because I had a friend of ours actually followed me up. And of course, my son was with me because my wife was down in Florida on a business trip. And I was like, where is my watch? I'm like looking around for it. And that was also the day that I discovered the whole find my device or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was able to ping it and I was like, Avery, go out and look in your car, please. And all of a sudden she said, I can hear it. And it took her
Mhm.
forever. It had fallen. It's a good thing it didn't fall out the window because it had fallen down between the door and the seat.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mm.
and it was her little Mini Cooper.
Yeah.
Her little small little Mini Cooper. My big old 320-pound rear end is driving it up there. You ought to see if both of us are in there at the same time. I mean, she basically has to like turn on the AC or we had to win because I mean that car gets warm quick. Yeah, the heater works really good in her car. And I say, make sure you bring my Apple Watch with you tomorrow. Watch, you'll forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I mean, she's also. This has been a wild week for her because, like I said, Monday we found out she was accepted to the Disney College program.
Yep.
So we've been planning. Yeah, she just said okay. But so we've been kind of looking as to when you should be going down there. It'll be in early August when she goes down there. That we finally got that settled. Now we're trying to figure, okay, we're going to have to go with her. She probably won't take her car because she's worried about the car making it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to drive in Orlando anyway.
Yeah.
And
I don't blame her.
yeah. And I actually have family who live kind of close to there. I mean, they're cousins who I mean, they're older than I am, but they're at least down there. And our friend Charlotte, of course, lives down there. So, and I know Charlotte, she's actually sent me some links anyway to help out. So, yeah, so it's just been a wild week. So, I mean, I haven't been able to catch all the AEW. I've been trying to catch as much as what I can. Like last night, I mean, it was a complete wash. And that's why I was like, when I got up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, I looked and I saw your text that Keith Lee had debuted.
Yeah.
And I was like, heck yeah.
Hey.
And then Jay White, that's the name. And now that one was one we said before we started recording. Tony Khan kept talking about opening the forbidden door all week.
Yeah.
And they kind of he even admitted, yeah, we kind of screwed that up some.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's Tony Khan. I mean, he's just doing clickbait. I'm gonna start calling him clickbait Tony.
Well, I think it's Tony Khan's a fan, and I think sometimes he gets overwhelmed with it, and I think he's like his wording was just off because I think the Keith Lee thing was already finalized. He said the Jay White signing was not finalized until like Sunday, I
Right.
think he said. So, but still, two huge
Hmm.
acquisitions for AEW. It just makes their roster even stronger than it already was. Keith Lee not only debuted and won his debut match, but he qualified for the Face of the Revolution. I think it's I'm not sure if it's a ladder match or not at the Revolution pay-per-view. If it is, God help everybody else that's in the ring with Keith Lee with ladders involved. But uh yeah, but I'm very happy for Keith Lee. You could tell last night when he came out, he was enjoying himself. And you could tell he even got on Twitter and thanked all the fans for their
Yep.
continued support, through everything. And you should like even the wrestlers that were excited for him, wrestlers that have this long affiliation with WWE were tweeting.
Foley.
Yeah,
Foley did.
Foley
Yeah.
were tweeting their support of Keith Lee signing with AEW because they know he's going to be able to be Keith Lee in AEW.
Yep. And Keith Lee is actually his name, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Which he had a bit of an issue with WWE because they tried to trademark his name.
You're going to trademark somebody's actual name.
And he's like, oh no. So he trademarked it himself. But yeah, Keith Lee is his actual name.
That's pretty sad when you actually have to trademark the name that is on your driver's license, your birth certificate, and everything. Yep. And that was actually something I kind of had a feeling that the WWE was doing that back when I was probably about 13, because I noticed all the different name changes that people would do.
Yep.
And then when they left, their name changed again. They could not take that. I was like, they're trademarking that.
Yeah. Like like Bryan Danielson. That's why he agreed to go by Daniel Bryan in WWE, so that if he ever left, people, real wrestling fans still know him as Bryan Danielson, so he would still be able to use that everywhere else.
Exactly. And of course, I mean, there's some names that there's no way they're going to try to trade. They're not going to make Ric Flair change his name.
No.
Some of them they didn't make to change their name, but they gave him a stupid nickname. Like, remember when Dick Slater, when he was in WWF for about 2 minutes, and I don't even remember what they were calling him, but it just did not fit.
No. Well, they wanted to change. They wanted to give Samoa Joe another name, and he was like, "No." Yeah. Everybody the world over knows him as Samoa Joe. It's like, leave it alone.
Yeah, and so every once in a while, the McMahons and whoever else are got to look and go, okay, we need to stop thinking with the business part of our brain. I think the logical part of the brain.
Well, it's just they're so intent on owning everything. That's why if you look at NXT 2.0, all of the ridiculous names that a lot of these wrestlers have, it's because these are WWE generated names because they want to own everything.
Right.
And it's like, I get that in a sense, but it's like name recognition goes a long way. Because if you notice, during the Triple H heyday of NXT, people were coming in and retaining the names that got them signed in the first place.
Yep.
Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens changed his simply as a respect thing to Owen Hart and
his son,
because his son's name is Owen, so he changed his name to Kevin Owens. But it still worked, and everybody knew that's Kevin Steen. As soon as he came out, it's like, that's Kevin Steen. Nobody was having to change their name, and then it's like, now it's like we've gone back to like 1995, where we just feed a bunch of names into a computer generator, and the first and last name that pops out is what you get.
Yeah. And then looking at this dude going, all right, you're kind of big. All right. All right. What we're going to do, I want you to put a big buffalo head on and go out to the ring. And what do you mean you can't get between the ropes? I mean, you better figure it out.
Yeah, you can't get between the rows. What do you mean you can't see in the big the big helmet and everything? And it's like, for people who don't know, go check out 90 like
the 95
WWE
Royal Rumble. Actually, that I know he's in
95 Rumble. Yeah, but check out just from 94 through early 96 of WWE. I mean, everybody had some type of profession gimmick. You had Duke the Dumpster Drosy, who was a trash man. You had hockey players. You had, it was just so ridiculous.
Yeah, and TL Hopper.
Oh, with the plunger. Oh,
Yes.
geez.
Or they just had some. I don't know what Aldo Montoya was supposed to be.
He was supposed to be the Portuguese man of
Man of
war,
War.
but it really looked like he had a jock strap on his head.
Yeah, they're like, all right, we're gonna take a jock strap. Yeah, I think somebody was high when they came up with these. Someone's like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna take a jock strap. I'm gonna spray paint it yellow. Now put it on your head.
Yeah. And if anybody doesn't know, Aldo Montoya is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
He was much better once he went to ECW and became just incredible.
Yeah. And in case anybody's getting confused, Justin, first name, and then Credible was the last name.
Fantastic finish, though. He had a tombstone called That's Incredible, but it was a spinning tombstone.
Yes, I do remember seeing that one. And I'm like, okay. I mean, the Undertaker could probably do it, but he's 6'10", so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But yeah, just go back and watch some of those things. When you have Mantar, when you have the Portuguese
Damien Demento.
Yeah, oh God, I forgot about him. Bastion Booger. Actually, may he rest in peace. He actually passed away.
I mean,
all that, but still,
rest in peace. But it's like, remember when they had him? He was a monk before that. Friar.
Yes, I can't remember but
I can't remember the last name. But they had him do that. Of course, that didn't get over, which it was never going to.
We'll look it up later on.
Yeah, and
Friar Ferguson.
That's it. Yep. And then the next thing that they do is have him as Bastion Booger, and he comes out looking like he's wearing duct tape.
Yeah.
And he's just eating disgustingly. And it's like, what is this supposed to be? Why are we supposed to care? And you didn't look at that guy and go, future world champion. You didn't look at that guy and go, champion of any kind. You look at that guy like, this is gross. Can you get off my TV?
And the sad thing, before he was Norman the Lunatic, which actually got over.
Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, people liked him. Before that, he was Makan Singh he was a vicious heel, and he was good.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now he's given up a title shot for Large Pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a real thing. They said, hey, instead of the title shot, you want this pizza? Give me the pizza.
Yeah.
And it's
I'll take the pizza. Not the world title shot to where I could make more money and buy a whole lot of pizzas, but
right. And the 94 Rumble, they've still never said what happened, why he didn't come out for the Rumble.
Yeah, I've never heard why he didn't come out.
Yeah, the storyline was, he had a stomach ache because he ate. It's like, sure. But so hopefully some stuff goes better for the people in WWE. I mean, they've got to start pulling the nose up, because I didn't realize this. I actually had to look it up. The Elimination Chamber is on the 19th. That's just over a week. I mean, I was like, wow. Because I'm thinking it's going to be at the end of the month, but then I looked and I was like, whoa, that's because Lita is not going to be involved. And somebody brought up some comments she made a few years ago when they first went to Saudi. And she said, she even admitted she's walking those comments back, because she honestly didn't think they would ever have women wrestling over there.
Yeah.
and now they have, and she's going to be one of them.
Yeah.
Um,
I just
I-
don't. I don't agree with. I don't agree with her getting a world title shot either.
exactly. I don't either.
I mean, you look at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Brock Lesnar is in the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship, which is ridiculous because
Mhm.
he won the Royal Rumble. He's already said that he's challenging Roman Reigns for the Universal title at WrestleMania, which booking wise, all of that is convoluted because you've just pretty much said it doesn't matter who you put in the ring with Roman. Roman's going to WrestleMania as the Universal Champion because this is the match that we want to have. So you've got part-time Brock in the chamber match for the WWE title, less than part-time Lita in a women's world title match against Becky Lynch, less than part-time Bill Goldberg in a Universal Championship match against Roman Reigns. You've got 3 part-timers taking spots from people that have worked all year for an opportunity like this, that worked their entire career to get one world title match. And you've got 3 part-timers taking spots.
And let's not forget the name we haven't even mentioned yet, Ronda Rousey.
You have Ronda Rousey, exactly, who wins the Royal Rumble. At least she picks Charlotte Flair because the match with her and Becky can't happen until Ronda's going to have to be heel and Becky's going to have to be face because it ain't going to work. Nobody's buying. Ronda Rousey as a heel is as effective as Brock Lesnar. Ronda Rousey as a face is as effective as Brock Lesnar as a face. Not at all.
Right.
Neither of them are effective as a face.
I don't care what Ric Flair said today on his podcast either.
The only reason she is a de facto face because everybody despises Charlotte Flair.
Yep.
That's the only reason that
they hate Charlotte more than they hate Ronda.
Exactly. They hate Charlotte more than they hate Ronda, so Ronda's going to get cheered by default.
Yep.
But you've got all these part-timers taking all these spots. And as much as WWE thinks that AEW is beneath them, look at how their Hall of Famers are used. They're used to enhance the talent that's already there. You've got Jake Roberts with Lance Archer. You've got Arn Anderson with Cody. You've got Tully Blanchard with FTR. They're in management roles. They're not taking spots away from people.
Exactly. And even, Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah.
He's there to help out.
He's there to help out. Yeah, he is helping train the ladies. And when Cody couldn't compete for couldn't defend the TNT title against Sammy Guevara, Dustin went out there, gave Sammy a great match, put Sammy over, for the TNT title.
The way it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Dustin is also about he's in his early 50s.
Yes.
He knows he shouldn't be going out there saying, all right, I'm going to take a world title shot because that's my brother who's running the place.
Exactly. But I would pay to see Dustin Rhodes wrestle in his early to mid 50s any day of the week over watching Bill Goldberg wrestle.
Yes.
And you look at Sting. Sting's almost 60.
He is 60.
He is he? He is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Sting is 60. What is he doing? Teaming with Darby Allin to get Darby Allin to that next level.
Yep. And Darby Allin, he is actually one of my favorites right now.
Darby Allin is fantastic.
Yeah. He's the only one when I was talking with Justin from Jay and Trey, which, by the way, give those guys a shout out. I always want to give those guys a shout out because they are just absolutely awesome. I mean, they are fantastic, awesome people. So for Justin, Trey, Jake, and I'm going to throw Courtney in there, was Trey's girlfriend. I mean, because I got to meet her as well. She doesn't get as much recognition, but she's right there, giving as much support as what she can. All of them. Yep. Yeah. I have not met Jake in person, but I have obviously met the other 3 down at Ludlow. Had a great time. But Justin and I were talking, and we're talking about because I want to say somebody did what they call it, the suicida or the dive.
Oh, the Tope Suicida.
Tope
Yeah.
suicida. Thank you. And I said I am not a fan of that move just because it just looks dumb. You just work out, except for Darby Allin.
Who looks like a bullet. He looks like he was
Yes.
shot out of a gun. And I love how he does it where a lot of times they keep him off camera to where when he does hit it, it's like the impact is like so much more. But yeah, he does it. He puts all of his body weight into it.
Mhm.
Like that is like the only thing that I don't like about. I didn't like it when he was Dean Ambrose. I still don't like it when he's John Moxley. Mox does that, but it's just like he's landing on his feet and kind of pushing the guy.
Yeah, it's like it's
Now,
like,
I've seen Samoa Joe do it, especially in his younger days. And you have a 280-pound freight train
yeah,
throwing a forearm in your face as he's flying through the ropes.
yeah, forearm in the face. I mean,
Yeah.
the anybody who comes out and they turn sideways, and so they're hitting them with their full body.
Yeah.
That's effective.
Yep.
And Darby Allin, the one of the things because Darby Allin is not a tall guy at all.
Mm-mm.
You know, he's probably just a little taller than Rey Mysterio.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rey Mysterio is one of the few male wrestlers you see when they come in the ring. They come in between the bottom rope and the middle rope instead of between the middle and the top rope.
Yeah.
Darby Allin, I've never seen him come in the ring like that. But when he did his we'll call it the bullet dive,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or the missile, whatever you want to call it, he went between the bottom
Yeah.
and the middle rope.
Yep.
And so he's not having to go up. And I mean, he's
Yeah.
so it's even more effective. And I'm still big on Jericho. Jericho is not, yeah, he was their title holder, you know, at first because they needed a big name and
Yeah. They needed a big name to get eyes on the promotion.
mhm. And I mean, I'm just because Jericho does so much
Yeah.
and he helps out the younger guys. And he has a really good head for the business and he's not trying to just get himself over. And, um, you know, so I wish more wrestlers would kind of be like that.
Yeah.
And the Tope
I see
Suicida,
I see a heel turn coming for him.
yeah, yeah, I've been from what I've been watching, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, they're still going to sing his music,
Oh yeah.
you know.
But
I mean,
but Jericho's smart though. He's like, you know, I'm 50 years old. I can't do the Tope Suicida or the, you know, I can't do the line salt like I used to be able to or things like that. But I can swing a back elbow and knock you out.
mhm,
And I mean, for his age and his character, the Judas Effect elbow works perfect.
yeah. And then he'll say, and then I'm going to go on tour with my band.
Yeah. And
I'm going to
then,
go do Dance with the Stars, better
Yep.
than the Miz.
Yep.
I'm going to do my podcast. I'm going to come here and I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to manage. I'm going to do commentary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help out backstage, you know, and so that's why I mean you know, Jericho is one of my favorites right now because of him. You know, we got all the stuff he does. Darby Allin, like I mentioned, because Darby, some people don't like the coffin drop. I like it.
I do too. I love it.
Yeah. Um, and AEW is not the same match over and over again. Now, there's some of the stuff I mean, I'll say does look kind of rehearsed at times. And I can't even
I
think
think
of who all,
I think that's just a product of the business as a whole right
yeah.
now. Because you've got a lot of these guys who, you know, came through the independent scene, and that's kind
Mhm.
of how the independents got, and so it kind of carried over. But there's enough of you get enough of you get lucha libre, you get the harder edge like death metal type stuff of
Mhm.
Malachi Black and Brody King. You get the more sports entertainment aspect of Cody, and but then you get your high flying with the Bucks and the Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin and things. You get a big mix. And like you said, there's not the same match every single week.
Right.
And that's the good thing about having their roster the way it is and having dark elevation and having dark talent can get shuffled around to where you don't get bored seeing the same people all the time. With WWE, especially Raw, you'll get the same match every week for
Mhm.
2 months, and then they'll turn around and book that same thing on the pay-per-view, and it's like, what is the point?
And
I
then have the
didn't want to,
rematch the next night.
yeah, I didn't want to see it 8 times in 2 months. I don't want, so I definitely don't want to see it on the pay-per-view. I definitely don't want you running it back on the next night on Raw. So it's like, just no. And that's the problem now, is because they have released all these people. They don't have enough people to fill out a 3-hour show.
And it's really making their women's roster suffer
Mhm.
because,
Yep.
that's been one of the things talking with, well, you remember Ella talking the other night.
Hmm.
She said at one point, even in the NWF, it was just her, Selena, Nikki Victory, and Big Mama.
Yep.
And she said those were the only four. And she said so they really got to know each other really well
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they were wrestling each other a lot. And now, of course, they've really beefed up the women's roster in NWF.
Yeah.
WWE used, they still got some women. Don't get me wrong; they still got some
Hmm.
very talented women, but it's not like it was 6 months ago.
No, it's definitely not how it was like 2 years ago, when they, the WWE legitimately had probably the most stacked women's roster in the business. And now it's like they're quickly going back to, if you're not Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, or right now Ronda Rousey, then that's the tier, that's the ceiling. And everybody else is just relegated to bathroom break matches. I mean,
Yeah,
we're gonna give you 3 or 4 minutes, and that's including your entrance, and this is all you're gonna get.
and AEW, it was that this was probably about 4 or 5 months ago. It's not that there was a lot of criticism, but they were being told that was maybe probably an area that needed to be strengthened up some was their women's roster
Yes,
because
that was the chink in the armor for AEW, was the women's division, but they took that to heart
mhm,
and worked on that.
because I listened to speaking of Jericho, I listened to him interview Jade Cargill, and I remember I texted you about it, and
Hmm.
I'm like, she is a very, very interesting person. Because
Guess who's training her? Brian Danielson.
really
Yes, that he is,
okay, didn't
because
know that.
he's working behind the scenes, helping with training and stuff, and he's taking an interest in Jade Cargill. So he's training her.
Well, a lot of stuff, I would have no clue about. She flat out came on there and man, this was a shoot. This was the person
Hmm.
talking.
Hmm.
She said, "I don't have to do this."
Hmm.
She said,
Yep.
she said, "I'm rich."
Oh
She's
yeah.
like, "I'm not trying to be mean." She's like, "But I'm rich."
Yeah.
And because her husband, or at least her boy, are they married? They have a kid together, but I don't know if they're married.
I'm not sure. I
But
think they are, but I'm not 100% sure.
he's got all his money from baseball,
Hmm.
and I cannot think of his name right now. But Reds fans should actually know who because he was a very
Hmm.
good. I think he played third base for the Reds, I guess, for years.
Hmm.
And we're talking like Hall of Fame numbers.
Yeah.
So he's and she also um she's certified in something. Yeah, she has a bachelor's degree and she's certified in something. So she has a career that she was doing outside of wrestling. So she even said she's like, I don't have to do this. And I'm not doing it for the money because she's like, I already have money. I'm
Right.
doing it because I enjoy it. And she trains hard. She's got a six pack, so that shows she's hitting the gym quite a bit.
Yeah. Yep.
And how many moms do you see with a six pack?
Brandon Phillips is
Oh,
who
there
she's
you go.
with.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how many moms do you see with a six pack?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hard to do.
Yeah.
She's worked at it.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you could tell in the ring. You could tell from when she first debuted in AEW, when she had the tag match with Shaq against Cody and Red Velvet. From there to now, you can just tell the work that she's put in
Mhm,
every aspect of her game.
mhm.
Her in ring work has gotten so much better. You can tell just she has that she's like Keith Lee. You look at Jade Cargill and you say, that's a star.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a
uh,
champion.
I'd recommend if you haven't listened to that podcast, first Jericho's podcast is just good anyway. But because I mean he doesn't just do wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean he has a lot of different topics. Once again, I'm gonna give a shout out to Jay and Trey. I did not listen to their show today because I mean I was so just swamped with work.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was pretty busy myself.
But did you see theirs yesterday?
I did not. No.
Well, they had two interviews on there. One was a woman. She's actually in the I guess you want to call it the biopic about Tommy Lee and
Oh, did she play Pam?
No, she plays somebody named Heather. I haven't actually seen the
Okay.
like Pam's friend.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
And they also had a woman. It took me a second to realize who she was. She's a chef down from Louisiana. I guess she actually she's like prepares food for LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And so she knows Joe Burrow, and so that's why it was kind of connected like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you got to think about who they're getting on their show.
Yeah.
And they're just getting them, and I'm like, man. And so I mean, but they're not just wrestling; they're not just sports,
Right.
and and I think those guys are. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job. I mean, because Trey does not hesitate. I think Trey is the main one who's sending messages. He does not hesitate. He as far as like reaching out to for people to come on the show. And those guys are doing a great job. Well, Jericho, I mean, of course, he used to do pretty much just wrestling.
Yeah.
But then he kind of branched because he started getting other like musicians on there. Now he's like the one today was a guy. The name of the episode: Aliens, Illuminati, Occult, and the Hollywood Connection. And he had a guy in there talking about all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and it was an interesting episode. But I mean, I think stuff like that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So but when he had Jade Cargill on there, I mean, because a lot of times he will still have them on there to have other wrestlers, and especially if they're AEW, because a lot of times he's right there, so they don't have to do a phone call or a Zoom or anything like that. They are literally right there. And actually through his podcast, he had the guys from the True Crime Cast and True Crime Cast and Bless Their Hearts on there. And now I've been in connection with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually been on their Bless Their Hearts podcast. I've written a story for their True Crime Cast. I've actually written another story that I thought I need to hit the guy up and go, you've said it's going to be on there a couple of times now. You've actually advertised it twice and it hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
So because I mean, I know they had a lot of hiccups all of a sudden happen because of like family health reasons, things like that. So I'm like, hey, you ever going to do that story?
Yeah.
But yeah, another couple guys, super great guys, and what actually kind of piqued my interest in that because they live in Berea, Kentucky.
Okay.
So they're not like super celebrity, whatever. I mean, they're just two kind of like us. I mean, they're just two guys,
two regular guys. Yeah.
two regular guys. And but with us, I mean, of course, we do focus on wrestling.
Yeah.
Because that's how it started. So and I cannot think of any other news happening this week.
I can't either. I think that's about it. I mean, it's been pretty quiet, but
yeah, I mean, some fairly big items. I mean, because anytime you have a big debut like that, of course, it's gonna be pretty newsworthy. And next week, I mean, like I said, we have an interview scheduled for this weekend. But I'm gonna wait and I'm still kind of like, oh my god, because we're thinking some really, really good questions for this one. But as we're coming to the end of this, there is something I do need to address. Okay, our podcast is about wrestling. Joel and I would like to come on here and we do like to have fun whenever we have subjects for interviews. We also like, to have our let's have fun, enjoy it. What we are not is part of anybody's fantasy.
Right.
When we interview people, we interview the person.
Yeah.
And it is the only, we've only done one, if you want to call it an interview. It was actually, um, to help promote, because we were asked to help
Mhm.
promote a match. And so we had two guys on at the same time, and it was, they were both in character, and
Yep.
we helped. Yeah. And we supported that.
Yeah.
These two guys are wrestlers.
Yeah.
And when you talk to them outside of the wrestling room, both of them super great guys.
Mhm.
And um, they will, their wrestling names are not their real names.
Exactly.
And
They
most of
keep the
the,
person. They try their best to keep their professional and personal lives separate.
right. And even before that particular episode started, one of them, his Zoom, he actually had his real name on there. So I actually went on there and
Yep.
changed it
Mhm.
to make sure. Same thing with Ella. We make sure, we we interview the person. They may go by their character name, but we're still interviewing the person, and we will, at their request, because we're still helping to promote their stories. We're helping to promote them. We will kind of delve into some of the, I guess, like, some of their storylines that they have going
Mhm.
on.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to say, oh, this person, oh, they're super friends outside the ring. If you've been a wrestling fan, for any length of time, you know the nature of how it goes, and you know that outside the ring, they're human,
Yep. Yep. Just like everybody else.
just like everybody else. And which means that, yes, they have friendships. Some of the ones who are smacking each other around inside the ring are actually good friends outside the
Mhm.
ring.
Yep.
Some of the ones who are friends inside the ring do not like each other
Right.
outside the ring. I mean,
Exactly.
that's just, and it's not that they're trying to fight each other, in real life all the time, but it's just they don't hang out, because some of them, they just don't like. And
Yeah.
that's something, I mean, I will not, because we're not, also not a gossip site.
Right. But they're still professional enough to look out for one another when they are in the ring
Yes.
together.
Yes. And some of the reason why I keep bringing this up is because we have been receiving emails to our podcast account. If you are not a wrestler, if you are not a manager, if you are not involved in the wrestling business whatsoever, do not send us an email where you are in character and then get mad because we didn't respond to it, because we didn't answer questions. I'm not going to take you seriously if you send me something in character. Dwalen's not going to take you seriously if you send something to
Nope.
him
I'm
in
not
character.
going to. I'm more than likely, I'm just not going to respond because that's not how we do things. It's not what we're about.
Right. And this is like I said, this is a serious show about wrestling, who we talk about the subject of wrestling. We are not going to be pulled into somebody's fantasy world where they think they are a wrestler.
Exactly.
And
Just like we both know we are lifelong wrestling fans, but we are not in the business, so to speak. We're not in the intricate day-to-day workings of pro wrestling. We have had the privilege of interviewing wrestlers, and which gives us even more insight into the wrestling business, but we don't have these fantasies that we are, you know, that we work for WWE or AEW and you know, that we're booking matches and stuff. Everything that we say is our opinion as a wrestling fan. You know, we have no fantasy about our role in professional wrestling.
exactly. And I've actually had people ask me, well, do you work for the NWF? No, I do not. We are loosely
Loosely,
associated
yes.
with them because we have done quite a few interviews now.
Hmm.
And, and I told one of the wrestlers the other day, I said, I'll tell you right now, it was a good feeling for me when a wrestler who at the time I had never spoken to before, but we had spoken about him when we were interviewing another, a
Hmm.
different wrestler. We interviewed one guy about an upcoming match, and going into this is when we go into kind of a character ish type questions like, hey, you have a match against this man here. He's a big man, but man, he can move. He is
Yeah.
quick.
Right.
How are you going to be able to handle that? And the same person we were talking about, I had never spoken to him before. Dwaylen had never spoken to him before. The next time I saw him, um, was not at that. Well, didn't talk to him at that particular match. It was a few weeks later, and he came up to me and he said, "I just want to thank you for putting me over during your interview with my opponent that I had." And that felt pretty good to me. That meant to me I was doing them justice by
Right.
helping. I
Right.
mean, helping them out.
Yep.
Helping try to promote their shows. I wasn't trying to inject myself into their stuff.
Exactly. Just
And
like we conduct interviews with these wrestlers, and they're all great interviews, they're all great people, but we don't try to insert ourselves in their storylines or their personal life or anything like that. It's like, you know, that's just not what we do. I don't get why some people have this fantasy that they're doing more than what they actually are.
right. And I'm not even going to try to pretend like I'm a wrestler. I have never had any of the training. The only time I have ever stepped foot inside a ring was because I was actually invited in because they were taking pictures or my
Right.
son was taking a picture with them.
Hmm.
And I walked in there with my son. But that's it. I don't try to pretend to be something I'm not because that's
Right.
an insult to them.
Yep.
And for us to, the harassment, and I will consider it harassment because when somebody tells me, oh, I thought of that name because I thought it would make both of you laugh. Guess what? I don't think it's funny.
Yeah.
Dwaylen doesn't think it's funny.
No, it's not funny at all.
Yeah. And not only that, but at the beginning of the email, you insulted us.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to think that you're a savior of this podcast, oh, I could show you some stats that'll tell you otherwise. Trust
Yeah.
me. And I'm not going to mention any names on here. If this kind of stuff keeps up, I will start mentioning names and I will embarrass you. And it won't make me lose any kind of sleep over it whatsoever. And trust me, that's not me cutting a promo. That's me just telling the damn truth. Excuse
Yeah.
my language. But yeah, this is ridiculous that we're having to actually tell grown adults grow up.
Yeah.
This podcast is not going to be part of your fantasy.
Nope. Not a bit.
So but that's all I have to say about that. So, well, Joel, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. I
Yeah.
think we covered everything we meant to cover, and hopefully people will understand where we're coming from as far as, you know, this is not a fantasy, this is not a fantasy based thing that we're doing. And
Right.
we're not going to allow people to turn it into their own personal fantasy.
Yep. This is not a fantasy. This is not a hangout. We don't have people on here unless there's some kind of contribution like
Yep.
to the wrestling portion of the show. And if somebody wants to question a couple of our guests, no, we actually had reasons for every single one of them.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
two people were friends of ours from,
Hmm.
but there was actual legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we have someone who has over 1.5 million followers on TikTok, who, by the way, also is very knowledgeable about wrestling.
Yep.
And you can actually talk about the relationship between wrestling and social media.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we have him on here? I mean, he's actually doing tours. Have you seen this? He's actually doing tours
Hmm.
across the United States.
Hmm.
So that right there, I mean, that's not a fantasy. I mean, that's just somebody discussing
Right.
wrestling. And the name of it is armchair booking, not fantasy booking.
Exactly. This
And
is not fantasy football or fantasy baseball or anything like that.
so like I said, I mean, that's all I got to say about it. And I believe Dwayne, that's probably
Yep.
all, we had to say about it. It's not going to
Yeah.
be brought up again. If I start getting emails again, I'm going to start naming names,
Mhm.
and you're not going to like what I have to say. So, but anyway, hopefully everybody who listened, by the way, if you want to catch us, or if you want to email us, it's armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. By the way, if you see us on there, do not start arguments with other wrestlers, actual wrestlers,
Exactly.
because yes, that also happened. And because they know a lot more about the wrestling business than we do, and especially than what you do.
Hmm.
And you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast, Instagram also at Armchair Booking. You can find us on Twitter at Booking Armchair. You can find us on TikTok at Armchair Booking. We've been making videos. It's been a little bit busy this week, so I have not made any videos this week, but we will keep those up. We're trying to get as many followers as what we can because we're trying to grow our listener base.
Yep.
And you can find us on, obviously, if you're watching the video, you already know we're on YouTube, but you can find us on just about any audio platform you can. If we're not on there, let us know. We will try to get ourselves added. iHeartRadio, you still suck. and last but not least, of course, we are hosted by Block Talk Radio.
Yep.
And if you would like to order some merchandise, we showed that at the beginning of the page, and the link will also be in the description. And I believe that is all. Normally I do that at the beginning of the show, but this time.
Yeah, I believe that's everything.
So, all right. Well, hopefully, this weekend goes pretty well, especially the interview doing and the next one that we're planning.
Hmm.
And that one, like I said, I'm looking forward to it, a lot.
Yep.
So,
me too.
And we've actually mentioned it already. We're just trying to finalize some details right now.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to do it. It's just getting a date and a time because everybody has lives.
Yeah. Trying to get a date and a time where everybody's available.
Yep. And all four of the guys that we've actually interviewed all 40s before, individually. And so we know they're all quality interviews just by themselves.
Yeah.
So I imagine you get all four of them together.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, my friend, I think I will go ahead and, say good night because wow, it's getting kind of late and I'm getting kind of salty. So I need to go and get off. So, yeah, I'll let you know about more details about, Saturday if I get any more, it should be just real quick and we'll let everybody know. I've already already solicited him some questions for one person and he's got some questions for us to ask. I was like, all right, cool. So and I'll let you know about those after we get off. So, but until then, I will say good night and God bless.
All right. God bless.